And this is a map of the Iranian coastline. Just tell us how this blockade is supposed to work.
Well, the parameters aren't quite clear, but what we have been told is that anything coming in and out of Iranian ports, as you see here.
So these purple dots are the Iranian ports?
They're the key ports, is subject to the blockade. That's all we know.
So they're not allowed to come in or out, in theory, of these ports?
Exactly. Although how they determined what is an inbound tanker or ship for Iran is unclear as well.
And tell us where we think or what we know about where ships that do attempt to break the blockade are being intercepted by the Americans.
So in the last couple of days, there have been a few ships that have fulfilled the criteria set by the US. They've left Iranian ports or they're laden with Iranian goods, so they've clearly called out of port. They have come through the route here, the Iranian prescribed route, and then they seem to have either turned around here or they have turned off their vessel tracking transponder, so we're not sure what's happened to them. That behaviour is highly unusual, disruptive, and suggests that there's some sort of chaos happening. But of course, there's also vessels that will come through dark with their vessel tracking transponders off.
Okay, well, let's talk about what we know or how we know what we think we know about where vessels are. This is ship tracking data. Explain what we're seeing here.
So this is vessels signalling via their automatic identification system their location in more or less real time at this here.
So each of these dots and arrows is a ship?
Is a ship. These obviously are at anchorage and not moving. The ones with the arrows are on their way.
Okay, so each ship has a radio transponder, I understand, and that's what the signal is showing in real time.
They're mandated to signal their position under international maritime law.
But do they always do that?
Well, no, they don't, and especially in war conditions, and Iranian crude exports have always been dark. So until the blockade, it was business as normal for Iranian crude exports. The vessels would load at Kharg Island, the biggest export port, while they were dark. They would sail through here dark, so you wouldn't be able to see them. Tracking now suggests that it's now very difficult for them to make the attempt to go through because of what we've seen for those vessels that have turned around there.
And I think when they turn off their transponders, that's known as going dark.
Going dark.
And I think Elpis is an example of a ship which has recently done that.
Yeah, classic. So Elpis went through several hours after the blockade was imposed, followed the track here, and then once it reached there, no more signal. So there's a couple of possibilities that happened to it. So it was interdicted and it's now at anchor, getting sorted out. It turned around but turned off its AIS, so we don't know where it is now.
So it's the last known location is here, but it could be here, it could be further out, we just don't know.
We don't know. Or it could be spoofing its location, and that is intentionally manipulating its AIS, so it shows that it's in one spot, but it's really in another. Again, we don't know.
What other things complicate the picture for us? I think false flags is something that you've mentioned.
Yeah, so false flags are vessels that are flying the flag of a registry that doesn't exist, so they're stateless, and they usually do that because they're sanctioned, and quite frankly no one else would take them. And so that's very, very common with Iranian trading tankers. So if you see any vessel flying a false flag, and there's about 18 or 19 of them that we've identified at Windward, then you know that's definitely heading to Iran.
The Alicia is one of them. We're showing its route over the past 48 hours here.
Yep, so the Alicia delivered a cargo of Iranian oil to China back in January, and then it sailed through. It arrived here just off Oman, and it's in ballast, so it doesn't have any cargo on board, and then it sailed through and technically broke the embargo because we know that it's going to Kharg Island.
But what flag is it flying under?
Curacao.
Right.
Curacao doesn't exist. It doesn't have an international register, and the Netherlands government have been advising anybody and anyone who will listen in the maritime sector for the last 18 months, these vessels flying Curacao are stateless because the register doesn't exist.
So ship tracking data doesn't give us a perfect picture by any means.
No.
So how do we cross-check and get the most accurate picture of what is actually going on?
So increasingly we're able to use satellite imagery to find out what is going on when vessels are going dark. So very good case in point is we've been looking at Kharg Island daily, tasking satellites, and we're able to see what vessels are loading there, and then we use digital fingerprints to identify those vessels. So even though they have sailed through here and we can't see them, we can sort of work backwards and find out what they're up to.
So big picture, the Americans say their blockade is definitely working, succeeding in what they want to do, which is to stop Iran getting its oil out to global markets. As best we know from the data, do we think that's right?
We don't know. And that's because, A, the mandate and the directions about the embargo are deliberately ambiguous, I would say. And secondly, when you've got ships like Elpis have turned off their AIS, and then there's a few others that have done similar chaotic movements after they went through the blockade, it will take a couple of days, or we have to wait for the US to identify the vessels that they've targeted.
Michelle Weise Bockmann, thank you so much for talking us through that.
Thank you.